Hey everyone, hopefully you're having a good day. My name's Andy. My channel's Finding Value. Today we're going to do our daily technical analysis update of commodities, work our way through the dollar, yields, and precious metals and commodities ETFs that I follow. I'm going to give you my financial opinions as we go. And if you need any help with anything, check out finding-value.com. That's where we look into individual companies and sectors and start to take positions in those companies. We do have a question and answer session coming up on Sunday. It was at 5 p.m., but I changed it to 7 a.m. Due to the Super Bowl, which some people were asking me if I could change it. So this Sunday, it's at 7 a.m. In the morning on Sunday. Just want to make sure everybody has that, and I updated it on the website. Let's dive in. Let's see what's going on in the markets. So we've got DXY, again, a relative strength indicator. To me, it looks like the DXY wants to go higher. Whenever I see these large buying pressure candlesticks and then a sideways action, it's the stair-stepping pattern that I see for moving higher. So the dollar looks like to me that we could continue to the upside. And that generally means stronger yields. So the yields also possess that same type of pattern. We're seeing larger buying pressure moves than the downside moves, and that generally means that we're working our way higher. Even on the 2 year, on the 10 years, got that same type of pattern where we could potentially move higher, and the 30 year. They all have that type of pattern where it's kind of flag pattern channel, sideways channel, where it'll eventually, I think, work its way on up. So yields across the board and the dollar look like they could potentially move higher. The ramifications of that is that gold may continue to move sideways for a period of time if yields do move on up, because generally it's a little bit of a headwind for gold. TYX TNX ratio, it's still kind of inverting, moving sideways. So not much progress there. And it's not really going to help gold. So gold's probably going to end up basically flat today because the dollar was basically slightly lower and yields were slightly up. TLT was slightly down today. Bond prices, the 20-year bond price. And to me, this looks like we could potentially still head a little bit lower. And then the 2 and 10, it's still hanging out in inverted land. So the yield curve is still inverted for the 2 and 10. There it is, all the way up there. So gold was sideways today, and I do think that we'll probably continue our way sideways for a while. It looks like that may continue. Silver pulled back a little bit, and it looks like it wants to try to break through its support level. We'll see if that occurs. If we have a bearish engulfing today, which generally means that we could head lower in the short term. With yields going up, that makes perfect sense if silver were to go down. And the yield curve still staying inverted or inverting further. Platinum getting hit pretty good today, down 2.6%. It still looks like to me that we are trying to put in a gigantic bottoming process. And then palladium down 52 bucks, 5.5%. But again, we're putting in what I think is a big bottoming process here. And we had just a pretty big down day today. We'll see if the support level holds on palladium. XAU to gold ratio down a little bit. The gold and silver mining companies going down further against gold. And we are still squeezing up and we're still above this support line at this time. We're in a nice little squeeze going on here. CRB index up today, and I think this could continue higher. We do have a little bit of a selling pressure move here where we could do something like that. Maybe we've got one last little pullback or washout sale before we move on up. But it looks good, and we could continue higher. And this is mainly being driven by oil. CRB to S&P 500 was slightly lower today, and we've been moving sideways the past few months. I think eventually this will work its way on up, but it's taking some time. Just be patient. So GDX was down a little bit, and I would probably just hold on. I wouldn't be jumping into these things. This to me looks like it's a pattern that could potentially head a little bit lower or go sideways on all these. We had a bearish engulfing setup on SILJ. Do we have a little bit of a false breakdown before turning and heading up? It very well could be the case. And that's why, short-term trading is really, really difficult to nail and get right in the very short term. Very difficult. So we have a squeeze up here with a bearish engulfing that just showed up today. Are we going to get a false breakdown and then reverse on up? We're going to have to wait and see. Crude oil up a little bit over 1%. The only thing I'll say is we do have a little bit of selling pressure here, and we do not have a reversal candlestick. All we have is this support line. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't continue to go higher, but we could still get kind of a double bottom setup or something like that that could occur. Uh, but again, we'll see. And in the short term, anything goes. But we were up 1%. It looks good. TTF gas looks like it's trying to bottom right where we're at. I think this will bottom here for TTF gas right on support. I think natural gas in America, we're going to have to bottom here at some point over the next few months. We're at $1.97. $1.97 is incredibly cheap, and it is below the cost curves of natural gas and some of the higher cost producers. We will put in a bottom at some point here, and I think we'll be higher in about a year or two. We will be higher. XOP, yeah, you know me, up 0.97%. Do we still have one last kind of double bottom where this thing does that? I kind of, in the back of my mind, I kind of think we have one last thing. We do not have a reversal candlestick here. The bounce hasn't been super strong, and we came in with pretty good momentum. But it does look like the momentum is slowing down. So maybe we've got one last little pullback or something left. Maybe. OIH also not super strong today, which makes me think, do we have one last little kind of move sideways or a little bit more, I call it trampoline jumps? Could this be a little bit larger, pattern that's developing on a longer term time frame where maybe we're kind of in a channel kind of squeezing up here? We'll see. But didn't have a huge strong bounce today, even though oil was up, which is it generally means there could still be some weakness left in the sector. Sprott Physical Uranium Trust, it looks pretty good here. It looks like it wants to work its way on up. It's looking pretty strong for Sprott Physical Uranium Trust. We've got URA, which also doesn't look too bad. Not a super strong day, not a reversal candlestick, but it does look like the gap's been filled, and it looks like we're going to maybe try to reverse here. URNM also looking okay. It's not a reversal. It kind of is a reversal candlestick. It's called a hammer candlestick, where you come on down, then the momentum shifts as you go back up. We can look at the short term here, and what that looks like is you've got your selling pressure here, and then the momentum's shifting and starting to work its way back up. And then you can draw basically a sideways squeeze up here, and we'll see if we can break to the upside here in the short term. But again, the short term can move in either direction very quickly. And URNJ looks pretty strong here. That is a bullish engulfing. That looks like we could potentially head higher. So that looks pretty good for URNJ. TAN up 4.38%, but it was mainly gained in the pre-market, and then the momentum was kind of lost throughout the day. So with yields potentially going up, I don't know. I don't think this will be a good shot here if yields do go up. COPX, we were down a little bit. Remember, yields going up a little bit. What was it? A little bit stronger dollar, I think. Was it slightly stronger or slightly weaker? It was slightly weaker today. The dollar was. But we were down in copper. I do think this is going to be a good spot for a potential move eventually to go up. I would look for yields to pull on back for that to be a driver of increased copper pricing. Lithium, again, stronger yields, doesn't like it, still pulling back. REMX, we were up a little bit today, but again, momentum's to the downside. If we get stronger yields, the REMX and a lot of these renewable sectors have been struggling with those yields going up. Surprisingly, the S&P 500 continues to move on up. Same with the NASDAQ. They both had good patterns here to move on higher, but the yields didn't. It just shrugged the yields off. So it is continuing to move on up and suck in capital for the S&P and NASDAQ. The KRE banking sector looks like it's trying to put in a bottom, but with higher yields, it kind of weighs on it. They've got those losses over in the bond market, and yeah, that's not helping with higher yields and bond prices going down. Emerging markets holding steady with basically the DXY moving sideways. We've got home builders moving on up 1.75% in spite of the higher yields pricing. So that looks really strong. We've got Moo slightly lower. It doesn't like the stronger yields. Is this a continuation pattern that has one last downside movement to $69 where the support level is at? I think so. I think we've got one last 69 touch that we're going to do. Copper down 1.18%. Again, I'm looking at yields. It doesn't like it. And maybe we come to the downside of 368 or so per pound. Iron ore moving on up. That looks like it's trying to put in a short-term bottom. Momentum is still to the downside, though. So we'll see if it can turn that downside momentum. Aluminum down a little bit. Again, these are highly sensitive to yields. I've seen base metals and a lot of these things move with opposite of yields. Lower yields, it goes up. Higher yields, it seems to run into some headwinds. Baltic Dry Index heading higher. That was up 5-point-some%. Looks like it wants to try to work its way on up. Newcastle coal up 1.3%. I think this looks good to put in a bottom here. I think it looks really good, and I think the companies are looking better. They're not looking too bad. And then BTC up 2.3%. It's working its way on up. It looks pretty good, actually. This is a break here of that pattern to the upside. And Ethereum also looks good. That is a break to the upside, working its way on up. It looks pretty solid. I'm surprised at how this turned this around. Nice little turnaround there. So that looks good for both Bitcoin and Ethereum. But that's what I've got for today, guys. Give me a thumb up for the content. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Subscribe to the website. We do have a discount going on. Leap is the discount. You can check the discount amounts. It's got a larger discount on a yearly membership if you guys want to join a yearly membership. So use the word leap because it's leap year. And we'll put that on for February since it's leap year. But that's what I've got, guys. And don't forget, Sunday at 7 a.m. It's been changed due to the Super Bowl for our question and answer session. Midweek updates have been released, and they're on the website posted already. All right, guys, that's all I've got. We'll catch you next time. This is Finding Value.